everyone. Ever think about how we're going to feed everyone on this planet with, resources being so limited?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, isn't it?
It is, but some scientists are working on some pretty cool solutions, seriously sci-fi stuff.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
We're going to dive deep into super crops today.
Cool.
All based on this SciTech Daily article.
Okay.
About research happening at the Technical University of Munich.
Interesting.
So what's really cool about this research is...
What's that?
Well, they're not, messing with GMOs in the typical way.
Oh,
It's like they're taking evolution and putting it on fast forward.
Speeding things up.
Exactly, and guiding it to make plants that can do some crazy things.
So it's not just making tomatoes bigger and juicier.
Nope, this is way bigger than that. So the key here, it looks like, is something called continuous directed evolution.
Okay.
And the potential impact is huge.
How so?
Well, we could be talking about plants that can resist drought.
Interesting.
Have way more nutrients and even use less water and fertilizer.
Wow.
We're talking about crops that can grow anywhere no matter how tough the environment is.
That would be amazing.
Totally. So tell me, they mentioned using yeast in this process.
Oh.
How does that even work? Yeast and tomatoes don't really seem like a natural pair.
Well, that's where things get pretty clever.
Okay.
You see, yeast is kind of like the lab rat of the plant world. It reproduces super fast, and you can mess with its genes pretty easily.
Oh, I see.
And the scientists are using yeast to target these short-lived enzymes in plants.
What do you mean by short-lived?
The ones that break down quickly, and the plant has to keep making more.
Oh, so it's like the plant is wasting energy constantly making new enzymes.
Yeah, you could say that.
Interesting.
And so by making those enzymes last longer, the plant can use that energy for other stuff.
Like what?
Like growing bigger.
Okay.
Producing more fruit.
Gotcha.
Or even fighting off pests.
So this all sounds incredibly complex.
Yeah, it is.
How are they actually making these enzymes last longer? Like with the yeast?
Well, they're using a technique called directed evolution.
Okay.
It's basically speeding up the whole evolution process, but they're doing it in the lab. So they introduce these mutations into the genes that make the enzymes.
Okay.
But instead of waiting forever for random mutations to happen over generations, they can test out thousands of variations in just a few days.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and then they pick the yeast that are making the toughest enzymes.
That's wild. So they're playing evolutionary matchmaker?
Yeah, you could say that.
Finding the yeast with the best genes, and then what do they do? Put those genes into the plant somehow.
You got it.
Wow.
Once they found the yeast with those super enzymes, they isolate the modified genes, and then they pop them into the plants.
It's like giving the plants a genetic upgrade.
Exactly, taking the best stuff from the yeast and giving it to the plants.
And in this case, the upgrade is all about making those enzymes last longer?
Exactly, enzymes that just won't quit.
So the article mentioned they're using tomato plants for this research.
Yes.
Why tomatoes?
Well, tomatoes are really easy to work with for plant research.
Okay.
Their genes are well understood.
Gotcha.
And they're pretty easy to manipulate. Plus, everyone loves a good tomato.
True. But the really amazing thing is that this isn't just limited to tomatoes.
That's right.
They could use this technology on any crop they want to.
Pretty much.
Hold on. I need to catch my breath for a sec.
We're
talking about totally changing agriculture here.
We are.
That's huge.
It is a big deal.
So what would that even look like?
Well, imagine fields of wheat that can survive a drought.
Okay.
Rice that needs barely any fertilizer.
Wow.
And fruits and veggies packed with even more nutrients.
Okay, that's a future I can definitely get behind.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
This is so incredible. It's almost hard to believe it's actually happening right now.
I know, right?
But are there any downsides to this technology that we should be thinking about?
Yeah. I mean, it's important to remember this is still pretty early research.
Right.
But the potential is huge.
Yeah, for sure.
We're talking about solving some of the biggest problems facing humanity.
Like what?
Like how to feed a growing population.
Yeah.
How to deal with climate change. And creating a future where food production is actually sustainable.
Okay, yeah. That's what I find so exciting about this.
Me too.
This isn't just science happening in some lab.
Right.
This is about real-world stuff that affects everyone.
Absolutely.
So how would this technology actually change things for the average person? Like someone like me just trying to buy groceries.
Well, imagine going to the grocery store and seeing produce that's not only cheaper, but also more nutritious.
Wow.
And grown in a way that's good for the environment.
That'd be great.
This technology could really help with food security.
Yeah.
Especially in places where there are droughts or people don't have enough resources.
So you're saying we could be looking at a future where everyone has access to healthy, affordable food.
Exactly. It wouldn't be a privilege anymore. It would be a reality for everyone.
That's amazing to think about.
It is.
But let's go back to the science for a second.
Sure.
The article mentions that this technique can, cram 120,000 years of evolution into just a few days. That's insane. Can you explain how that even works?
So think about it this way. In nature, evolution is really slow.
Okay.
It happens gradually through these random mutations.
Right.
And sometimes those mutations are good.
Okay.
They give an organism an advantage so it can survive better and pass those traits on to its offspring.
Right, like survival of the fittest.
Exactly. But this process can take thousands or even millions of years.
Wow. That's a long time.
It is. And that's where directed evolution comes in.
So scientists are basically fast-forwarding natural selection.
Exactly. They're not waiting for random mutations.
Okay.
They're making specific changes to the genes themselves.
And that speeds things up.
Big time. It's like taking a shortcut through evolutionary time.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this.
It is pretty wild.
So they're making these super efficient plants by using the power of evolution itself.
Got it.
It's like a whole new era of plant breeding.
It is.
One that's based on precision and understanding how nature works.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that this technology isn't just about changing existing genes.
It's not.
Nope. Scientists can actually create entirely new enzymes.
Wow.
Enzymes that do things that plants couldn't do before.
Okay, now we're getting into some serious sci-fi stuff.
I know, right?
So we could see crops that aren't just resistant to pests and diseases,
Huh?
but also crops that can do things we haven't even thought of yet.
That's the beauty of science. We're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Like what kind of things?
Well, imagine crops that can clean up pollution in the soil,
Okay.
plants that make their own fertilizer,
Wow.
or even crops that can grow in salt water.
Wait, saltwater crops? That's
Yeah.
insane.
I know, it's pretty amazing.
But let's come back down to Earth for a minute.
Okay.
The article focuses on this research in Germany.
Right at TUM.
Right. But is anyone else working on this kind of stuff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They are.
This research at TUM is just one example of all the incredible work happening in plant science right now. Scientists all over the world are trying to figure out how to improve crops.
In different ways.
Yeah, they're using everything from gene editing to traditional breeding techniques.
So it's a global effort?
There's this huge push to find sustainable solutions for food production.
So it's not just one team in Germany?
Nope. It's a worldwide movement.
Wow.
Everyone is working together to try and create a better future for food.
It's pretty inspiring to hear about this kind of global cooperation.
I agree.
Especially in a world that feels so divided sometimes.
It gives you hope, right?
It does. It makes me feel like we can solve even the toughest problems.
Yeah, me too.
It reminds you that science can bring people together.
Absolutely.
And that we can use it to create a better future for everyone.
Definitely.
So what other crops are scientists focusing on with this technology? Is it just the basics like wheat and rice?
Oh, no, it goes way beyond that.
Really?
They're working on all kinds of crops.
Like what?
From fruits and veggies to things like beans and oilseeds.
So we could see like super nutritious blueberries and drought-resistant soybeans?
Exactly. The possibilities are endless.
And it's not just about making them better in general.
Right.
They could tailor these crops to specific regions and climate.
That's the idea.
So we could have drought-resistant crops for deserts, flood-tolerant rice for areas with lots of rain, and even crops that can grow in cold places.
Exactly.
Okay, my brain is officially exploding with all the possibilities. But I have to ask, are there any downsides to this technology? Like, are there any risks that we should be thinking about?
Yeah, it does sound like we're on the edge of this new green revolution.
Yeah.
But this time it's all about sustainability and being really precise.
But, I do have to ask, are there any downsides to all this?
Sure.
Are there risks that we should be thinking about?
Well, I think it's important to remember that with any new technology, especially one that involves changing how life works at its most basic level, there are always going to be potential risks.
Right.
One of the biggest concerns is unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences? Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, what if these modified genes, accidentally spread to wild plants?
Oh, okay.
Could we end up creating super weeds that can resist herbicides?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Or what if these modified crops mess up ecosystems in ways we can't even predict? These are all questions scientists are thinking about very carefully as this technology keeps developing.
So it's not just about creating these super crops.
Right.
It's also about making sure they don't become a problem themselves.
Exactly.
It sounds like this research needs to walk a fine line between innovation and caution.
I think that's a great way to put it.
And that's why it's so important to have open and honest conversations about all this.
Totally.
About the potential risks and benefits.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be talking to the public, policymakers, farmers, everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
To make sure these advancements are done responsibly.
Definitely.
It's a good reminder that scientific progress isn't happening in a vacuum.
Nope.
It needs to be guided by ethical considerations and a real understanding of the impact it could have on the environment and society.
Absolutely.
So what's next for this research?
Well, the next step is to take it out of the lab and into the field.
Oh, okay.
They need to do real-world trials.
Okay.
To see how these super crops perform in different environments.
Interesting.
And under different conditions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Scientists will be looking at things like yield, nutritional content,
okay,
and resistance to pests and diseases.
So it's all about testing them out in the real world?
Exactly. Seeing how they do outside of the lab.
And what kind of timeline are we talking about here?
It's tough to say for sure.
Okay.
The approval process for new crops can take a while.
I imagine.
It depends on the country and what modifications were made.
Yeah.
But I'd say we're probably still a few years away from seeing these super crops in the grocery store.
Okay. So it's a waiting game for now.
It is.
But I'm definitely excited to see what happens.
Me too. It's a really exciting time to be following all this.
Absolutely.
If we can do this right, if we can use directed evolution responsibly, we have a real chance to change how we do agriculture.
Wow.
And create a future where everyone has enough food.
And where food production is sustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, this has been an amazing deep dive into the world of supercrops.
It has.
From the science of directed evolution to the potential benefits and challenges.
That's fascinating stuff.
It's a topic that's full of possibilities.
It is.
And we should all be paying attention to how it unfolds.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of supercrops and the amazing science that's making them possible.
It's been fun.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of science and technology.
Sounds good.
Until then, keep those brains buzzing.